All right, guys, I want to talk a little bit about this new Stan Lee documentary. Unfortunately, it looks like he was taken advantage of at the end of his life for monetary reasons, and I just want to talk a little bit about it. As you can see from what's behind me, I don't have one specific superhero or character. The only one specific person I do have on my wall is Stan Lee, and that's not by accident. I've always found Stanley somewhat relatable. He always reminded me a bit of my grandfather. Obviously, I grew up Jewish in New York. Stanley is Jewish from New York. But he also had this look of, like, Stanley always looked like an older guy, as far as I can remember. Even when you look at older pictures of Stanley, he looked like an older guy. And my grandfather had, pretty much the same thing. He had, like, that same thing, almost like the thing that Ric Flair has. Ric Flair has almost always looked like a 50-year-old guy. But yeah, I guess I always found him relatable, and the reason I have him on my wall is just I always took great pride in the fact that a Jewish guy from New York, along with Jack Kirby and, Simon and Joel Schuster, who are from Ohio, created a bunch of these characters. Maybe some other Jewish people take pride in Oppenheimer building an atomic bomb. I take more pride in the fact that Jewish people created a lot of these comic book characters and that a lot of the Jewish values exist in these characters. So, yeah, it's very upsetting to see him taken advantage of at the end of his life. I don't plan on watching the documentary because even the documentary itself is to make money, so it seems a little bit weird to basically release a documentary about Stanley being taken advantage of while he's essentially being taken advantage of in the documentary while also talking about it, so it's a little bit weird. What I think is also important to remember about this is that although Stan Lee's impact and Marvel's impact is extraordinarily positive in upbringing, the story of Marvel in his life isn't perfect. Stan Lee is not a perfect person, and that's why he's actually a good person to be in charge of superheroes, because superheroes aren't supposed to be perfect people either. Stan Lee, in my opinion, although I think he was a good person, I don't think it was ever fair how much credit he got. And maybe I'm somewhat hypocritical because I have a picture of him on my wall. But Jack Kirby, who I want to be talking about more and more on this channel, really, really, I think deserves at least 50% of the credit from Marvel. Maybe not 50%, but at least 45%. It certainly wasn't all Stan Lee. Steve Ditko creating Spider-Man. And a lot of these characters, he had a lot of help along the way. And, 100 years from now, he's going to be the one that's be remembered. Comic book fans like myself will die out. And, I just think it's not really cool how Jack Kirby never really got the credit he deserved. He's certainly one of the grandfathers of Marvel. And not only that, he also worked on plenty of DC stuff. So he's made contributions to both. And, unfortunately, the comic book industry, it's a double-edged sword. To get his content out to the masses, he had to make business deals with Universal, right? Why is there Hulk? Why is there Spider-Man? Why are there all their... why did Fox have a lot of stuff? Because they were on the verge of bankruptcy. And so while the Marvel style and the MCU in totality is great, it certainly led to a lot of bad business deals along the way. Stan Lee, did well for himself, but he was not, a millionaire or a very wealthy person really until I would say the end of his life. I mean, much of his life was struggling as a blue-collar businessman to sell and push these comics. And luckily he did. So I don't really have a general overall point of this other than it's pretty unfortunate in that there really isn't a linear kind of positive story like the MCU. There's a lot of left turns, right turns, people screwing each other over. At the end of the day, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, I think, were good guys who deserve credit for the universe. But unfortunately... just a lot of problems along the way. So I'm not going to watch this documentary. I'm not going to tell other people what to do, but I just don't see a point in watching it. I think if you want to see Stan Lee's work, it's literally in everything that you see behind me. And I think that's what he probably would rather have you watch than some stupid documentary he probably didn't even want made. Thanks, guys, for watching. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.